How do pawn chains work in chess? Have you ever wondered how a simple pawn can create a powerful structure on the chessboard? Let's break down the concept of pawn chains and how they function in the game of chess. A pawn chain is formed when pawns are lined up diagonally, supporting each other. Each pawn in the chain protects the one in front of it, creating a solid defensive formation. This structure not only provides protection but also helps control important squares on the board. At the back of the pawn chain is the rear pawn. This pawn is the most vulnerable part of the chain and needs to be well defended to keep the entire structure intact. The pawn at the front of the chain is usually the most advanced. It plays a key role in influencing the opponent's position by controlling critical squares. Pawn chains are essential for controlling territory. They defend central or strategic squares, making it difficult for the opponent to penetrate your defenses. For instance, if you have a pawn chain with pawns on d4 and e4, you are controlling the center of the board. This central control is vital for developing your pieces and maintaining overall board dominance. The direction in which a pawn chain points indicates where you are likely to launch an attack. If your chain points toward the king side, you will typically focus your offensive efforts there. The pawns will control or threaten squares in that direction, supporting your strategy. However, be aware that your opponent can target your pawn chains, especially at their base. Breaking an opponent's pawn chain often involves a pawn break, which means pushing a pawn to challenge the base pawn of the chain. This tactic aims to weaken the structure and create openings for an attack. While pawn chains provide a strong foundation, they can also become weaknesses if pushed too far forward without support. An overextended pawn chain may become vulnerable to attacks. Additionally, the placement of your pieces is influenced by pawn chains. Pieces are often positioned behind the chain for protection or in front to support an attack. Maintaining a solid pawn chain allows you to develop your other pieces effectively, control key areas of the board, and plan attacks based on the chain's orientation. Understanding how to attack or undermine an opponent's pawn chain is a vital skill in chess. In summary, pawn chains are fundamental to chess strategy. They shape the battlefield, influence how pieces move, and determine where attacks or defenses should be mounted. So, the next time you play, pay attention to your pawn chains and how they can work for or against you.